A-Team blows up the land of Oz will not be seen today in order that we may bring you something even more unbelievable.
Previously on Giving the Mic to the Wrong Person.
On TV, I am currently watching Teen Wolf, which
I've heard good things about it.
I had no idea was going to be so good. I am like a sucker I love like teen vampire shows.
Yeah.
And I like actually had a thing about like every time a werewolf comes onto a vampire show, they ruin it.
Yes, this is actually kind of true.
It is. It's like the
Buffy,
vampires.
man.
Yeah, the vampires come in, you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
But I started Teen Wolf, and it's super fun. It's like an MTV show. I didn't even know they made shows.
Yeah.
But
it's got a huge following.
It's
supposed to be
super
really
fun.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it checks off all. I have like really specific list of things that I expect out of a teen drama.
Mm-hmm.
They have to say I promise all the time.
Beautiful people.
There has to be like either like a Founders Day celebration right away or some sort of a regular
small town civic event
but
it has historical significance for that small town. Usually there's a curse or some kind of history involved there, right?
Exactly, yeah. And they're usually like teenagers mysteriously disappeared at one point. But the big thing, and it took like a season and a half, but it definitely happened. The big thing is at some point somebody has to say, truth is. And every single one of these shows, it eventually happens. And I was so excited when it finally happened on Teen Wolf.
That's awesome.
I'm like, I could totally write these things because all you gotta do is promise everything and say truth is, and boom, you got it. But I love teen dramas. I'm like totally done with adult dramas.
They're fun. They're just like, it's like popcorn. It's delicious. It's like great.
Does the truth is bit like function as a way to be like, okay, we've just given you a bunch of like sort of teenage melodrama with little pepperings of supernatural stuff, and then now we'll start getting serious about the supernatural element of it?
I don't know. It's just a line that always eventually works its way in there. They always say, like, really seriously, truth is, like, in,
I just think it's such an interesting criteria that I want to understand.
It's good.
Is it similar to how, like, in all cop dramas, the point where I think even Hot Fuzz was like making fun of us? Is like they always have someone say, "We're gonna blow this thing wide open."
Yep.
You're too close to this.
Yeah,
one.
probably like that. And for some reason, truth is the one for teen dramas. Yeah, I'm done with adult dramas. Adults are assholes, and I'm sick of their drama.
They're just so dreary.
They're just boring and just jerks, and they never learn anything.
Yeah.
Like on teen dramas, at least they learn stuff sometimes, even if it's like, really obvious.
That's a great point. That's why I actually read a lot of young adult fiction still, just because I like the idea that you have this fundamental story about discovering yourself and also discovering how to be an adult. Because I feel like most adult fiction is all about how adults are fucking up their lives.
Yeah, like how everything's shit all the time.
Yeah.
And they're never going to change.
Exactly. You'll never win,
Yeah, exactly. So I'll stop there.
No, I think that's a perfect segue. It's great.
Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a dork living in Portland, Oregon who spent too many years listening to podcasts and not doing anything creative. This is my attempt to rectify that, to create and contribute something where I talk to people about their cultural obsessions and try to give some recommendations of my own. Welcome to Giving the Mic to the Wrong Person.
Hopworks opened a place in Vancouver, and they're going to put some of the Mount St. Helens pictures on their walls.
Oh, that's so great.
Awesome.
That'll be pretty.
They're friends of my husband. The owner's a friend of my husband.
Cool.
Oh, that's great. I like Hopworks.
I just remember. I remember having the big. Always driving by it and remember the big brouhaha when it opened. Did not actually go into it until a few months ago for the first time ever. So we're and with that, welcome everybody to Giving the Mic to the Wrong Person. I am, of course, your erstwhile host, Jeremy, here with two repeat visitors coming back to brave the current heat wave in Portland again in our scenic basement apartment studios to help me record this thing I call a show. All right, let you two introduce yourselves if you would.
All right, I'm Natasha. You might remember me from the last 5 episodes.
I'm Tara, and I am back for more. The last time I was on, we talked about sports, and today we're going to talk about my second favorite thing to talk about. So I'm very excited.
I'm excited too.
And our ostensible starting topic before our conversations wander off into 1,000 other digressions and discursions, because hey, that's just how we do. Today is on what is listed as teen drama. or pretty much soap operas involving, possible high schoolers, maybe sometimes
It's kind of important part of
30-year-olds
it.
pretending to be
Yeah.
high schoolers.
Well, that's the thing. Is like I'm wondering which is. It's almost kind of a thing where it's like any entertainment involving teenagers is usually set at high schools, but not at, say, college. And I think I think there's a couple different reasons for there. One is that in high school, it's high school is universal, college isn't.
Yeah.
Correct.
Plus, high school at least has people tend to know each other, and whereas you get to university and it's like who cares?
Yeah, and a lot of people experience college in different ways. They might not come right out of high school. They might go back later. They might be commuters. They might live there. Yeah, high school is definitely, at least in the United States, there's certain things about high school that everybody remembers. They remembers, they remember the cliques. They remember the building. They remember some of the different adult influences in there. They remember the parents. They remember the families. So I think we're probably going to get into all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Or at least attempt to, unless we forget. And the fact that always reminded me of one of the things that always annoyed the hell out of me is when you had a lot of, because of the, how a lot of like scriptwriters grew up, a lot of them taking tropes, writing say scripts set at colleges as if it were high school. And it's like, no, dude, it doesn't work like that. And it's kind of annoying. But I wanted to start out, in the modern version of the Webster's Dictionary defines style of opening, only that we're going to adjust that just a little bit because I want to read the TV tropes description of teen drama because I am much more interested in the tropes and cliches of this subgenre of programming, much more than even more so than the particular instances, because it's interesting to see what exactly makes, people, primarily if they're not in Toronto, they're always in Southern California, feeling the need to, you have like 30 and 40 and 50 somethings feeling the need to inject into their shows. So here's the listing for teen drama as described on TV tropes. Any show where the central focus is on teenagers, their angst, pimples, and or clothes. Best describes shows like Beverly Hills 90210 and Dawson's Creek, or anything else on the WB or the CW, really. Most likely place to find the very special episode. The kind of show where everyone's too old and too short to be teenagers. They have to bring in new people in. The men keep taking their shirts off. There are no more than two non-white main characters. The teens talk much more like adults than teenagers, and anyone over a specific age is bad news. See also KidCom, which features teenager protagonists and many of the same tropes, but generally in a far more lighthearted manner. Young adult fiction is the rough literary equivalent of the teen drama, but also compare with soap opera and primetime soap. And then the last one is when the lens is reversed to focus on the flaws of the kids' entire families, it's then known as the Stepford Suburbia. And I think the teen drama was always started as just from Degrassi.
Wake up in the morning feeling shiny and dingy. I gotta go to school.
Which I don't know if depending on one's age and location, if you didn't grow up with access to Canadian television, you never really, you only kind of heard about Degrassi. But Degrassi was always the thing that started. I think it started in like the late 70s. It's one of those things where I think the very first Degrassi episode started in 1979, the same year that the very first episode of You Can't Do That on Television started. And it just kind of went from there. And what always struck me as interesting is that Degrassi, you had Degrassi and then like Degrassi Jr High and then Degrassi High and then like Degrassi, the next generation.
Oh yeah.
Or Degrassi.
It's kind of what they did with Skins. I don't know if you're familiar with that show, the British.
Yes, but I don't think I've actually. I didn't think I've ever watched any episodes.
Oh, I really enjoy that show, and I know a lot of adults that have enjoyed it too. It's sort of like the equivalent of the American high school drama. They're going through secondary school and then going on to college. It follows them, but it also, as the series progresses, it goes down to their younger siblings or people that they know. So
I'm a little bit on the older side for Degrassi Junior High. Is that, Jeremy, was that the first exposure to teen drama that you had?
Not really. I don't think so, because I don't think I actually. I'm trying to remember how many of the actual dramas that I don't think I actually watched that many growing up, because if it wasn't genre entertainment, who cared? It's like, I don't care about this. It's like, at least you can't do that on television was funny. Most of the stuff on Nickelodeon and Nick at Night was funny. I have, even like, let's say growing up in the 80s, when you had primetime soaps, it was kind of like, who cares? It's like there's, the particular genre, it didn't have any of the preferred genre trappings. So like, why did we need it? It's not until the modern era where, with the rise of so-called capital P prestige TV, that they really figured out a way to, post Sopranos, take the aspects of soap opera and whatnot, and throw in enough.
Credibility.
Credibility, but also
Action.
Enough new, pretty
Romance.
much, just blood and toplessness. That's pretty much it.
Value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, what was the first, or what teen drama do you identify most with? Or are you most familiar with?
I think for me it was the first. Because my thing was mainly sitcoms. It's probably, I'm willing to bet, because I am a hardcore Gen Xer, I think it was Beverly Hills 90210.
90210.
Yeah. The story of two kids, which is actually hilarious. Looking now, it's like you had this entire pop culture phenomenon based around Shannon Doherty and Jason Priestley, and I guess also Luke Perry, but that's another story.
So it was Brenda and Brandon, and they were kind of the normal, stable family,
right?
Like the more typical American, solid American family.
Yeah,
I think they just moved to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, they were the flyover country audience surrogate, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah, and then they met and like integrated with all of the popular kids,
the cool people,
put themselves into the high school there. Yeah, how about you, Natasha? What's the first one that you really remember identifying with the most?
That's going way back, because I mean, in terms of Nickelodeon, I grew up on stuff like Salute Your Storts and Pete and Clarissa Explains It All. That was like the Disney, the kid stories, right? That's not drama. That's the kid comedy that we were talking about. That's a really, really hard question, because there's been a lot growing up. But I just remember really, really, really getting in love with Buffy when it came out. When I was watching it, I was about 12, 13 when that came out. And I just remember it was one of those things where you would go to school and you would talk about what happened on Buffy, because that was so cool. It was ahead of its time at that time.
I remember when Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie came out.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And then when they came out, that actually starred
Luke Perry.
Luke
Yep.
Perry, yep. Luke Perry.
There's going to be a lot of that.
It's a really underrated movie. I love
Perry,
that movie.
And was it Christy Swanson?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Paul Rubens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So both of the two dramas that you brought up are both, like, I love teen drama. And those are kind of two different subgenres of, because there's the ones with the supernatural, and then there's the ones with the really, really rich kids. And in my mind, those are kind of two of the main categories.
Yeah.
There's a third that's like just about like everyday regular people, like Friday Night Lights, and it's just about like the regular. But then I have a particular affinity for the ones that either, like I said, involve the supernatural or show me the slice of life, like super ultra glamour that I never knew about. Like Gossip Girl,
the OC back when it came
OC.
out. Oh my god,
dear Lord,
California. Garrett's not here to sing, so we'll have to jump in there.
To do it. Yeah.
California. And I guess the trope description gets into one of the more amusing tropes that I always found. Well, yeah, being, like I said, Gen X kid in the 80s, when like very special episodes, growing off of the after school specials. I think we were like a mid-late 70s creation, something like that.
After school specials?
Yes.
Yeah.
But when they finally affected primetime TV, but more importantly, they were, very special episodes infected sitcoms.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was in the sitcoms that was always...
Join us this week for a very special episode of 90210.
Oh, not just that, but also like before Mr. Belvedere, there would be a title card that come up and like, today we're discussing various serious topics like kids, you might want to have your parents around for something like that, and it was because it always involved It was either chemical, usually not it was either sex or chemical abuse. That was it. That was all it was. It wasn't about like, and that's the funny thing. It was all.
It's kind of manufactured for that time period, like the scare of what that generation was going through. Like, oh, my kid is going to end up teen pregnant or, do drugs.
Or falling with delinquents or whatnot. But never about, say, economic material things like, hey, what happens when your parents get laid off because the company decides to, I don't know, pull out of Flint, Michigan and put, lay off several dozen thousand people. Mm-hmm. And how do you as an adolescent going through that? How do you survive that stuff? It's always kind of more like whatever the how's this for an ironic word choice? Whatever the hot topic at the time was. Feel free to laugh on Mike. Trust me, it's we do it constantly. As long as you don't you don't sound like Stav, you're okay.
If you're going into like shows that this is my problem. I have the tip of my tongue problem with this show. But do you remember the show that was with oh God, I'm gonna just totally burn here. Jared Leto was the cool guy that
My
hung
So-Called
with
Life.
Yep. I think that was the beginning for me, television-wise, of shows that were focused more on the internal things of being a teenager versus just the exterior things. Sorry to throw that in there, but I just remembered that.
No, it's perfect. That is exactly that. In fact, that bridges between. So-Called Life was what, like a couple years after 90210 showed up. It was like MTV's version, and I think because it was basic cable, they could do like a little bit more. I'm trying to remember.
They could talk about like homosexuality and drugs and stuff like that without having it be sensationalized. Yeah, like sitcoms were doing.
Yeah, because 90210 was definitely, I believe, was still like 80s outgrowth, whereas So-Called Life was full on, like, early 90s Clinton era Gen Xer stuff. So it's like much more like, hey, we have like not as closeted, gay characters.
Mm-hmm. I actually watched 90210 with my kids. So I don't know, like when they were probably tweens. Mm-hmm. My kids are pretty close in age, and so they were like, probably like 11, 12 through like 14. Mm-hmm. And we watched several seasons of 90210 together, and I was kind of amazed at what a great conversation starter it was. And we had a joke in the family about Mom doesn't have to teach us about anything because we're watching 90210.
Oh my God.
But it was a really great conversation starter. I mean, that's one of the things I think that I do like about teen dramas. Yeah, is that they might be silly, and we might go into other things about them where there's pitfalls, but they do bring these things up. And when I've talked to a lot of people who at least are my age and even younger too, when they talk about some of their favorite shows, like a really classic one is Gilmore Girls. Oh, yeah. They're shows that they remember because they watch them with their parents. Mm-hmm. And, that's not always true. But for me, 90210, watching it with my kids, because first of all, they'd be like, is that what it was really like when you were kids, Mom? But then they'd also be like, wow, that's really different than it is today. Like, the way that they handled teen pregnancy is really different than we handle it today, but it's not something that's gone away. It's like still here. It's like, and we kind of realized that talking about these topics didn't necessarily solve the problems, but it helped people understand them and bring them up and like not be embarrassed to talk about them.
It normalized them to a certain degree, which is important because that is human condition, right? That's going to happen.
Yeah, we are trapped in we are biological creatures. What's the term? Yeah. What's the process? What
destigmatizing?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was word I couldn't. Yeah.
Again, it's the rule, not the exception. Is if you feel free to jump in because as we talked about before, I get panicky if I have something to say. I need to say it because I know thanks to my brain, and I have 19 other episodes of it on record. I will forget. Mm-hmm. And it's the anxiety of it's like why if you're trying to sleep at night and you're freaking out about forgetting something and it's keeping you up, it's like, no, just write it down so you don't have to, because otherwise your brain will freak out about you not remembering something.
I think it's because we watch too much TV.
That too.
That too.
Television, the drug of the nation.
I'm just gonna say it. I love TV so much. I really do. And I'm so grateful for all the people who throughout the years have taken the time to write these episodes and craft these episodes. And I appreciate the effort that goes into birthing a show and bringing it out and then being brave enough to share it with the entire world. And
Yes.
I don't know. I'm just somebody who's I think a lot of people might feel the same way about books, and I love reading too, but for some reason something about TV just really resonates with me.
The medium has a different way of being constructed, right? I mean, you definitely usually have a couple of writers working on something, and then they're working on it weekly, and then that might change over time, and then you're dealing with actors who have their own, set of problems or whatever.
Yeah, they bring their own.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about the way that a novel is constructed versus how a TV show is constructed, and even a TV show as compared to a movie, because a TV show is usually a cast that's together for years and years and years, and they learn how to work together, and they have these long-standing relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
At least modern American television. I think like I said, once you get into British television production, which is more novelistic, which is why they only have, say, I think at some point it's almost I think lends its credence is more often you get higher quality because you get much more singular vision than what you only have one or two writers for 6 to 12 episodes rather than a writer's room of up to
And they keep it short.
23 to 26, yeah.
The syndicated model of having 24 episodes a season, we don't even really have that anymore thanks to Prestige TV, and it's kind of actually nice because I think a lot of that, what's wonderful about old TV is that they had to stretch it out and they had to create those very special episodes because they had to stretch it out. So they had to keep you entertained week to week, but Lord knows, my favorite part is when they have a really, really bad time with it, and they obviously had a really bad episode, and
which does, or you get to think the phenomenon that is the clip show.
Oh God,
those are the worst.
The mid-season. This is what happened.
Do people really think that we like them?
I don't. I think it's I think it's a budget thing.
I think it's filler. Yeah, I think that they just either they can't afford that episode or they didn't plan on it and they have to fill it up. I mean, anime does that all the time. I mean, I'm not coming out as saying I watch a lot of anime, but when I do watch anime, it happens. Oh God, sorry.
That's okay. I watched more than my fair share way back when.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think we like teen dramas? Because I'm just guessing. I haven't actually asked you two how old you are, but I don't think any of us are teenagers right now.
No,
I'm very far away from it.
No,
So why do you think
40.
why do we like watching teen dramas?
You should answer that question.
Yeah, I was
first.
saying,
I know why I do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I see. It's almost an odd question for me because it's like shit. I don't watch much TV anymore. It's I haven't even watched any any of new Twin Peaks, for God's sakes.
Mm-hmm. I'm saving that
but
up.
One of the things that I did want to bring in is what happens when you have teen drama aspects brought into greater shows.
Oh yeah.
Twin Peaks being a great example of that.
Definitely.
Also, and I think to a certain extent, half of Stranger Things was teen drama mixed. Well, teen drama, but also mixed in with. Teen drama, but mixed in with, say, Stephen King's attempt at the storylines with minors,
but made with kind of real teens,
right.
and in a good way. I think that's one of the strengths of that show. Should I start this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I read a lot of young adult fiction. It's because the genre I'm particularly interested in and also write in, and I also TV for me is a medium that is something that I typically I watch just for fun because it's usually TV. I have a lot of problems with writing tropes. I can guess stuff that happens. If a show surprises me, I'm really happy about that. And so teenage dramas tend to do that because, they're trying to create that interest over time, and typically they're about interpersonal relationships. And they're not doing it in an adult way where you have to court around and adult problems tend to be very complex and messy and very too realistic. Teen problems tend to be something that you can kind of distill down to, my parents are jerks, or I'm the poor kid at school, I'm the nerd, all these kind of really fundamental, small, isolated things, and they're all kind of forced to work together within this system that doesn't is kind of against them. So I've always liked that part about it. I like the dynamics of having that you're always going to have a different group of people, like with different kind of backgrounds and stuff. Twin Peaks is a great example of that.
That's a really great point that I hadn't thought about before, where the adult problems are really complex and they take a lot of build up, and there's often like economics and money and like a deal, and then like some sort of politics, and there's like all these
everyone's corrupt, everything sucks.
Yeah,
everybody's cheating on each other.
Or at least that is how it's depicted rather than reality.
Exactly.
Because I think you can also do that with certainly do that with shows for teenagers, only because you are ostensibly aiming at a different audience that isn't quite as po-faced serious as like a lot of as say adult dramas are, or rather bloggers who write think pieces about adult dramas.
Oh God.
Which is like it's one of the things. It's an aspect of it's something that I don't think it's been talked about more and more, but with the again, they call it prestige TV, which is at some point it's almost kind of a misnomer, because it's still like, there's always been decent TV, but now it's like the
everybody's aiming for that.
Is that what prestige TV is? It's like supposed to be like the good shows, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah, but they try so hard to be the good shows that it's almost comical.
Right. It's a sense of like there's a self-seriousness about it of, hey, if we there we go. If it's using it's similar to like mature programming or mature audiences, which means dope, guns, and fucking.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a sense, but it is the either the inability or just the way that can't really handle talking about like heavy serious topics, so they tend to lean always towards the most superficial aspects of stuff that happens, so like stuff that you can't very and I'm not formulating this well as usual. Like here, it's like we can get because this is for an older audience, we can get away with with like pulp characterization and like and like titillation, where
we don't need any depth to our characters or their interactions. We just are gonna go for, wow, how edgy can we get with this, right? I mean, there's shows that do adult topics and usually like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like The Wire, where you take a serious subject and you treat it seriously and you do it with care and tact. But taking something like, oh God, prestige TV, like Mad Men is a perfect example. By the time that it was over, I was just like so done with it, because it's like how self-satisfaction and like how like self-absorbed the idea of like kind of sort of
the characters were,
or the showmakers of like we are making serious
TV.
This they're almost like Aaron Sorkinism for like, we are doing important. We're doing important work. This is serious work, and it is.
This is important TV. This isn't just like entertainment TV.
Right.
This is important TV.
This has literary value is the thing. And it's like, no, by default, it does not have literary value just because you have a high production budget, honestly. Or that
you're adapting a book or something.
Exactly.
Well, the reason I like teen dramas is because adults are assholes.
That is the perfect answer. Just keep it at that. No, I was kidding.
Perfect. Go ahead. No, but I mean, I just when the main characters are teenagers are trying to work through things. They're trying to understand things. They're trying to become better people. They're trying to grow. They're trying to figure out how to make it in the world. And if I'm watching some 45-year-old man or woman who's made these mistakes over and over and over again, I don't care. I tend to not care about the characters in adult dramas. That's not to say that they're not really good adult dramas out there, but for me, I care more about watching characters grow, and it's more likely you're going to get that when
absolutely
for me when I watch a teen drama.
Yeah, you're more invested in them because you know that they can kind of overcome these mistakes or these problems that they're experiencing. Whereas an adult, you're just like, that's a really sad person,
Yeah, well, and teenagers are supposed to make mistakes. Young adults are supposed to make the mistakes. And I think that goes back to the high school aspect of like, why is it set in high school? Because in high school, people make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And
you're embarrassed all the fucking time.
Right. And the older you get, the higher the stakes are when you make a mistake. And so starting it out in high school is just kind of where like everybody's fucking up.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, how do we as a society pick each other up and move forward, rather than just like, how do I get ahead and make a lot of money and crush people with all the power that I have as an adult?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. And on that note, let's take a quick break. Going into, I guess not just like shipping and slashfic, but also, well, I guess.
Wait, can I ask what slashfic actually stands for? Is that like the slash that you put in the name when you're trying to push people together?
I think that might be where that term originated from.
Yes.
It just means, it just usually means that it's usually male. There's slashfic for women too, but it was primarily male for a long time.
Kirk/Spock.
Yeah.
So it's slash fiction is when somebody like a fan writes fiction about two characters and puts them together like romantically. Does it have to be romantically?
It can be
Is that
any
what that
number.
means?
Yeah.
I think it started. It just started with. Oh, hello, cat.
There's different.
It started with. It just started with like two main characters, just just boning down, because that's how fan culture goes. It's like, hey, if there's if it's in even like you went it's almost like it pre-internet Rule 34.
Yeah, Rule 34 being if it exists, there's porn of it.
Oh,
which is pretty much true. I mean, any kind of, we call it crack pairing, anything that you can think of, somebody's put it together, just to see how it works, because some people just identify with it and like it. But yeah, it mostly kind of like shipping culture actually pretty much came out of the X-Files, the message boards that were around that. There was like a shipper versus not anti-shipper.
like people trying to put Mulder and Scully together.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to like kind of bring it back to the teen drama thing. Like the whole purpose of like probably 85% of these plots is to get people together.
Exactly. So it is pretty relevant to the conversation. And I think a lot of it too is really interesting to see how that culture has developed over time, because originally, like I said, Kirk and Spock, and even during Star Wars, it was like Han and Luke was the thing. Like they used to throw zines into Mark Hamill's yard. His kids found them, and it was like, there was a little beef there. But just that kind of culture of watching something and trying to find what you like about it, and then kind of imagining the possibilities from that has been around forever, since media was formed. But nowadays it's so prevalent because the internet has made everything so immediate access that you'll see a lot more of that kind of dialogue around who should end up with who online.
And I think that some folks have figured out how to monetize it, and so they kind of emphasize like
how do you mean monetize it?
If
how are they monetizing? What are you saying they're monetizing?
Monetizing is I always take it back to something that George Carlin said many decades ago. If you can nail together two things that no one has never nailed together before, some schmuck will buy it from you. Monetization in this case of monetizing of like how do we profit off of fan culture?
Okay, yeah.
Of like how do we that. Someone realized that instead, it's kind of like how when culture changed back in the aughts, when nerd culture subsumed culture, just took it over and completely just enveloped it, where it's like before you always, going back to high school tropes, they're like, hey, we don't want any of these nerds in our cool, we're cool. We don't want any of these any of this nerd shit, uncool nerd shit that, in our serious or cool programming. And they realize, hey, wait a minute, nerd types, or people, massive fans of genre entertainment, people really into nerd shit, have the most predictably monetizable consumption, discretionary consumption habits ever. And all you got to do is just put up, just keep pumping out shit with like superheroes or dragons or zombies or vampires or spaceships, and some schmuck will buy it from you.
Okay, so my brain just kind of exploded because I realized that teenagers are also sort of like that.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
They're mass consumers, and they don't have as much money to spend necessarily as the educated, well-educated and well-paying and employed nerds.
Yeah, so
right.
no, they fix it on media because that's what's accessible to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So I was actually just thinking of an example of shipping that kind of I kind of see where this is going, like shipping leading towards monetization. And I went back to 90210. We seem to all sort of have that in common, as we know with the Kelly and Brenda. Which one of them is going to end up with Dylan? Was that the Luke Perry character?
Yes.
So like they dragged that out, and it was like first he was with Kelly, and then was he going to be with Brenda? Or, I can't. But it was like when you have like two characters kind of fighting for or vying for
a love triangle is always a part of a teen drama for that reason, because it creates conflict, and also because they knew from like stuff like Sam and Diane, like you keep the couple apart because as soon as they get together, then things kind of just they're normal.
The anticipation.
It's the anticipation.
Okay, let's see if we can think of any couples that lasted, that stayed interesting.
That stay together?
Yeah.
Oh God, that's a really difficult question, actually.
I know. There's gonna be a lot of like dead air.
Yeah.
when we think about that.
Well, there's that.
I'll shout one out if I think of it.
Well, there's that one also. Yes, you enjoying yourself, Kat? Yeah, there you are.
There's a very cute cat next to us, and she is hot as that we are, and she's lying on her back with her feet up in the air. It's very cute.
Bear trap configuration. But what? Well, I guess because love triangles, it's much like why you have so many like TV shows set in like police stations or hospitals, is because these structures for characters will easily produce episode ideas for lazy TV writers.
Drama and conflict. Oh my
Right.
God, I watched all of Grey's Anatomy. I know that. Oh God, why did I do that? I hate myself sometimes. I watched all of Heroes too. I can. Yeah.
But the aspect of like the longest, how long can we edge our fan base?
And
of like the longest of like the most like anticipatory thing where
How long can we drag it out?
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Where they-
too. Oh, you can see that, and I think Vampire Diaries is a perfect example. We should probably give a preface for the show and what it's based on.
Yeah. We have Okay, so Vampire Diaries has a classic love triangle. It centers around Elena Gilbert, and she's in high school when it starts, and she meets the mysterious Stefan. What is their last name? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Anyway, she meets the mysterious Stefan.
Oh, Salvatore, right?
Oh, yeah, Stefan Salvatore in a cemetery while she's writing in her diary.
Yep.
Get it? And she meets this mysterious young man who is drawn to her, and he starts going to the high school. He's a new kid at the high school, and she falls for Stefan. Editorial comment: he's the perfect boyfriend. Moving on, and then meets his brother, who has been the prodigal son and has been off like on a vampire killing spree, and comes back, and of course Elena is now torn between Stefan and Damon,
And she looks exactly like her ancestor, who was responsible for them becoming vampires.
right, and was responsible every time that they get estranged from each other. It's over this woman who looks exactly like
her.
Elena.
So she gets to play her evil twin throughout the show, and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Tropes within tropes.
So tropes within tropes.
Yes. Evil twins, mysterious lost siblings, mysterious lost twins, doppelgangers.
Parents you didn't know were your parents.
Right. Vampire Diaries has like a lot. It has just about everything.
Witches, werewolves.
But they're a love triangle. What starts off with Elena and Stefan, and then Damon comes in. And I thought at that point, like, once they find you should probably put a spoiler alert at the beginning of the show.
That's fine. I'm totally cool with spoilers.
But once Elena gets together with Damon, they in a way stay together for the whole rest of they basically stay together for the rest of
That's what I figured. Yeah,
rest of the show.
And the body count in this show. I mean, Buffy was bad, right? But it was built on Sunnydale's built on a hellmouth, so you kind of explain why everybody dies in that town. But you can't really explain how people don't notice the fact that there's mass deaths in that town.
Yeah, in Mystic Falls.
Mystic Falls.
Yeah, in Mystic Falls. Okay, I want to. At some point, we need to also talk about locations, because I love locations of teen dramas. But yeah, so in Mystic Falls, like the vampires in Vampire Diaries, they are able to. Okay, so they're able to be in the sunlight because they have magic rings. But then every once in a while,
bullshit.
They
Bullshit.
You know, I consider
No.
myself somewhat of an expert on different types of vampires.
Me too.
And I have a whole nother like basketball vampire comparison that we won't go into today. But anyway, basically the San Antonio Spurs are vampires. But anyway,
No, we were this is a Texas. This is some Texas thing, isn't it? I love it. Like something on a near dark.
no, they're old, and the San Antonio
Okay.
Spurs are old, and yet they continue every year to get better. And like that's the thing with Vampire Diaries. Vampires is they're youthful, and which is why Stefan, even though he was like 400 years old, he got to enroll in high school.
Yeah.
And his brother's like, "Why do you want to go to high school again?" He's like, "I'm just so attracted to this girl." But anyway, in Mystic Falls, what happens every once in a while is that the vampires either get compelled by some other outside force, or for some reason they do this thing where they turn off their humanity. And once a vampire turns off their humanity,
In
that means they
Vampire.
kill
Buffy, yeah.
everything in sight. Like
Massacre.
like massive. Like they'll like go into a restaurant and kill like every single person in the restaurant. And
Yeah.
and then there's always my favorite. The character in Vampire Diaries is the one non-magical character. He manages to like through 8 episodes or however many episodes.
You're talking about like the
Matt,
yeah.
who's the biggest loser. And
Yeah.
he's just such a loser in
Why
my
do they
opinion.
always include those guys, the
But
straight man.
He's the only non-magical person, and like he ends up being the sheriff of this town where everyone is constantly killing
You would have to be
everybody.
the worst sheriff
He's
ever.
The worst sheriff. Like everybody's constantly having mass murders, and he's like, oh, you know, he
Just
just
another
like
day of
sits
the
there
job.
and like you know slicks his hair back and like you know pants and is angsty,
Does he just look cute, right?
he does. He's not even cute at the end. It's
Aw.
just sad.
Well, that gets into, and we can again another digression. Like we can get like 4 episodes out of this, but the necessary trope of the clueless the clueless lawman.
Yeah.
Because of the thing is how many of these like you know supernatural threats, and we can get into like supernatural teen drama so, but rely on the fact that once you get the cops involved, you get the, like I said, the all-encompassing power of the state to come down like a friggin' hammer on anything.
Yeah.
And we even see like some subversions of this where you actually get where something like Stranger Things where
Yeah.
one of the lead characters is the sheriff, you know, fighting against you know, much more entrenched local power systems.
Exactly. Yeah, he's kind of going mad than having to rely on the teenagers to help him like go through the whole fact that, you know, his town has been invaded by an alien of sorts.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's a thing, or something like even.
Well, Twin Peaks is all about how the law is coming in and dealing with stuff, but that's also from an adult perspective. The teens are just kind of accessories within it, but are interesting characters in their own right.
Yeah, I'm thinking of dramas like of the non-supernatural variety again, like 90210, Gossip Girl. If they're non-supernatural, I don't see as much law enforcement.
They're not. Yeah, they're usually is less murder.
Yeah,
Because
right?
because a lot of them.
if there's law enforcement, it's a very special episode.
Yeah.
Well, how many of the teen dramas, non-genre dramas are set in to keep the production numbers low, and because of the particular demographic background that most modern American showrunners are from, they're like. These shows are set in upper middle class, white suburban. They're which can be easily shot in some suburb of Los Angeles, and because they mainly feature like comfortable white folks.
Yep, comfortable white folks.
Which means they're not exactly going to run afoul of the law. You know, like they might get pulled over for a speeding ticket, but they're not they're not getting as hassled by law enforcement as possible, unless it's like some sort of like high status. Some sort of like deliberate high status thing where like they're committing fraud or whatever.
One of the shows that I like that kind of subverts that trope is The Misfits. It's a more recent teenage drama, comedy drama from Britain, and it's about kids that are working community service because they all basically got arrested, and they're all kind of lower class, and they get superpowers, and it's a cute show.
It's your chance to do something positive. Give something back. You can help people. You can really make a difference to people's lives. That's what community service is all about. You know, people out there, they think you're scum. You have an opportunity to show them they're wrong.
Yeah, but what if they're right?
It's got a lot of
Ooh, I
good
have to
people
check
in
that
it.
out. I haven't watched that.
Skins is good like that too because they also kind of explore people from lower class backgrounds and like kind of the deals and also from upper crust too. So it's like a mixture where they kind of deal with both sides of the realities and also doing drugs and having sex, but not having it be like that big of a deal, you know,
right?
Like most teenagers.
Well, I think the moralizing aspect of British television not being nearly as foregrounded as it is in American television. For,
Exactly.
You know,
I mean, we have Seventh Heaven, and you know, like good Christian children growing up and making mistakes that they can
learn from and become better. Yeah, I never watched Seventh Heaven.
I didn't either. I mean, it was on there for laughs sometimes, you know.
Yeah, or Dawson's Creek. I haven't watched.
Oh yeah,
that one
Dawson's
either.
Creek. That was a laughter one too because it was just so, you know.
I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. I want to know right now. Will it be?
so heavily late '90s emo.
Oh God, just his face, you know, his crying face is.
Yeah.
It's just burned into your memory.
Yeah. Well, he came back recently and did a bunch of expressions as an adult, just doing all the expressions he did because they were making fun of him for so long about it that he was like, I'm taking this
Who
back.
was that star?
I don't know.
James Van Der Beek.
James
Van Der Beek became the meme, and then came in and said, "Oh, screw it! I'm getting into hopefully this will raise my residuals." So yeah.
Was he in the super or science fiction about the future, the big war with the big bugs?
Oh, you're thinking of
Starship Troopers?
Yes,
Starship
Troopers.
That was Casper Van.
Oh, Casper Van Dyne. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all. Yeah!
That was a great movie, by the way.
I love that movie so much.
It's really hilarious looking back on that movie.
That's a really good. That's an amazing war as hell movie.
Yeah.
They really do an amazing job of that. Okay, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Back to teen dramas.
But one of the things but bridging from, bugs and sci-fi, then really like bugs and supernatural into the topic of the supernatural drama, which I guess everything from Twin Peaks, but Twin Peaks was certainly was a supernatural show, and I think at one point because parts of Twin Peaks were at some point very consciously mocking other other like primetime soaps that were going on at the time. I mean, at one point they have I can't remember what the title of it was, but they cut to like the characters will be watching television, and they'll cut to them watching their own like the kind of like in-universe fictitious primetime soap.
Yeah.
And every hour holds the promise of an invitation to love.
Yeah, there was a soap inside of the OC, and they like met the people who were on.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
the show within the show.
Yeah, they were like some of the girls in the OC were like big fans of this one show, and then they actually got to meet like the stars of the show, and that's
awesome. That's a good trope.
And but I think with the Twin Peaks is almost a thing of like where they sandwich together both aspects of like primetime soap with like adults doing like dastardly, which was best described later on as God, what was it? I think was it Game of Thrones or was it? No, I think it was Downton Abbey. I think it was described as people doing treacherous white people shit.
Yeah.
So accurate.
Whereas Twin Peaks you had like all the older characters who were always really doing like treacherous white people shit, white folk shit. But also you had the younger characters, some more annoying than others.
James, sorry.
Oh. Yes.
Some
See
more
the
annoying...
one with the motorcycle?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
You either have
brooding James and his jaw.
Yeah, you have the puppy dog guy. The puppy dog face.
Donna!
Yeah.
Donna!
Oh my god, yeah, I know.
Shut up, James.
James, guess why I'm so happy today?
Because your skin is so soft and you smell so good?
No.
Why?
or like Bobby, I remember my roommate when we were rewatching the series. But he hated Bobby so much because it's like, look at how awesome his parents are. He has the greatest parents in all of television, and he's that much of a dick to him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember actually. So when the new Twin Peaks came out, so here's the story. I'm going to digress with it really quick with the story.
Yeah,
go for it.
When the first night that Twin Peaks was on, in my memory anyway, was in college, and it was also the first night we ever watched America's Funniest Home Videos.
1990, yeah,
right.
89,
So
90.
this was a time I was living in Eugene, Oregon. There was not a lot to do.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I happened to be very, very stoned. And we were watching.
That's how I usually watch television,
right.
so it's okay.
Life in Eugene where there's not much going on. There's no internet
so
or video games.
we watched America's Funniest Home Videos, and our minds were blown. We'd never seen anything like it. Was like the funniest thing we'd ever seen, and we were like, "Oh my god, we got to remember this."
There's nothing funnier than seeing people.
Well, it had
up.
never been on. Like you have to imagine a time where this had never been on. Like there had been candid camera like 20 or 30 years
before. It was
before.
right when camcorders got
but
cheap
this
enough for
was
everybody
like
to have
you
one.
didn't put people's like embarrassing foibles on TV. So we were like writing them down. We were like, "This is the funniest thing." Oh my god, kid is like
I used to tape episodes because I was a tape head.
Well, no, it was
That's
like, and we
awesome.
were writing them down because our roommate was coming home. We're like, we got to tell Sean about this. This is amazing. And so we were like, kid hits his dad in the crotch with a golf club.
Hans Moleman Productions presents Man Getting Hit by Football.
This contest is over. Give that man the $10,000.
This isn't America's Funniest Home Videos.
But the ball is groin. It works at so many levels. Roll it again.
Oh my god, it was so funny. Baby falls asleep eating. Oh my god, it was so funny. So we were doing all this, and so we were like exhausted, and we were like sitting in the couch, and we were just like on the the high from having watched America's Funniest Home Videos for the first time, and we were sitting there on the couch, and Twin Peaks comes on.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
And we were like, what the fuck is this? Because again, this is at a time where that shit was not on TV.
Yeah.
Like they didn't. We were like, he's dead, Harry, wrapped in plastic. And we were like, we can't get up. And we're like stuck to the couch just going, oh my God, what is going on? What is happening?
Yeah.
That's my story. Sorry.
No, that's a perfect way. I mean, I grew up with memories of it because I was too young to remember it. We were watching it in Oklahoma because I was living there at the time. But the thing about it was like, I realized later my mom was so obsessed with it and I loved it because we grew up within, 20 miles of where this is. So we could always...
the actual falls.
Yeah, of the falls and also, that area. So we, growing up with that around, you get kind of infected with that whole, like, at dark, it is pretty fucking scary and big and huge, and you've got this kind of mysteriousness to the landscape itself. And so when I just remember watching it as a child and not really processing it, but like when I grew up and finally watched it on Netflix because it was on there, I was like, holy shit, what have I been missing out on my whole life,
Well, and I think to get back to the teenagers, like the teenagers in this show were super complex.
Yeah.
Like they were kind of acting like adults, but they were making really stupid kid-like decisions.
Yeah, Audrey is my favorite character for that reason because she just
special agent.
Yeah,
special agent.
She's dancing with the devil a lot, which I like a lot about her character.
Yeah, no, that was interesting. But we went back and we were like, when the new Twin Peaks came out, we were like super excited. We were like, okay, we got to watch this. And then we were like, hold on, let's back it up a minute. And like figure out like, are we really going to be this into it? Do you think it's really going to stand the test of time and like be able to? Can we really recreate the atmosphere that we were living in Eugene in the 90s?
Yeah.
and
also should you?
Yeah. Well, it's legal now, right?
Yeah.
So we went to Wikipedia and read the like synopsis of Twin Peaks, and we were read the first season. We were like, yeah, that was awesome. And then we were like, oh yeah, I remember what happened in the second season.
It got really
and we just kind of closed the computer and we're like, yeah, we're good.
Yep. Don't need to rewatch that over again.
I remember. I'm even finally getting exposed to the show 10 years later when the first season got released on DVD. Second season took forever, so fortunately my roommates then had all the tapes, so we shotgunned the tapes.
That's
and
great.
even in doing that, I was fine with okay, this is funny. Characters doing weird things, and Lynch is off making Wild at Heart or God knows what, and so Mark Frost is like playing around. Like I thought I had a great time doing it. Because I haven't actually seen the second season in 15 plus years. I have no idea how it holds up, but
Yeah, it can get a little bit silly. I mean, yeah, but I really appreciate the second season when it builds to the actual reveal, you know, like.
I think the reveal happens in the first season.
It does?
It happens right
oh,
in
yeah.
the first
Oh,
season.
wait, no, it does. Right. You're right.
Yeah.
Maddie, yeah. No, the second season is the one where they go off and they...
There's outer space.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And you're like,
the owls
what?
are not what they seem. The log is ready to talk.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it, but I definitely like the first season.
Yeah, it was. I remember like when the big reveal was made. My husband was working in a restaurant, and so I was home like late at night watching it. And I like called him up and I like made him get off the line. I was like, "You gotta get home as soon as possible. I am so scared right now."
It's one of the scariest moments in television that I've ever watched, and
primetime TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. But when one of the people in Twin Peaks, Madchen, how do you say her name?
Madchen Amick.
Madchen Amick,
and she's in Riverdale.
She's
Let's
a
talk about
staple.
Riverdale.
Yeah, she's a staple
and
of
Skeet
teen
Ulrich,
dramas
too, which I'm like,
yeah, she's awesome.
And but I think before we bridge to Riverdale
Mm-hmm.
itself, very like so
spiritual successor, right?
Well, yeah, well, so openly aping to try. I mean, like I said, there are so many tropes in just the pilot of Riverdale, which I watched earlier today as in a rare moment of episode preparation. But we have to talk because we can't talk about teen drama and the supernatural teen drama without talking about Buffy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
which is almost the transition point between of like you could have a show that was far deeper than check that an American show. Because Degrassi they were off doing their own thing,
right, yeah.
far deeper than any of the, or at least attempting to be far deeper than most American shows. But with you have because of the supernatural element of Buffy, because genre elements are because you could mix genre metaphor to talk about to really sync up with the emotional aspects of being a teenager.
Yeah, Buffy really was genre busting because, to summarize, in case there's anybody out there who hasn't seen Buffy, she's a teenager who's a vampire slayer, and she's still trying to deal with like passing math class and.
Well, she's a cheerleader too. She's like kind of an airhead, and that was the whole point. Like, she didn't have to be like this super smart, nerdy type that was like figuring things out. She is kind of just brawn over brains, and she has a support group. The Scooby Club. Or was Scooby
Gang.
Scooby Gang, sorry,
yes.
not Scooby Club.
The 90s.
That support her in that. But I think a lot of what the magic of Buffy comes from the fact that it's a little more self-aware than a lot of the shows that were coming. I think that's Twin Peaks was fairly, it was self-aware to the point where it was just like, we don't care if you don't understand, right?
Yeah.
It's a dream world, and I like dream logic and shows because I don't feel like everything should be explained all the time. But Buffy had set up a universe in itself that was very interesting and very weird, but also kind of like, people weren't that like their minds in the show itself. They're like, yep, this is kind of just life now, and it's treated with normalcy. Like,
but yeah, behavioral normalcy in an abnormal situation, which I think is kind of how you get believable characters is like
exactly.
You can have like similar to like watching The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
The John Carpenter's The Thing, and there's a bunch of other examples of this, but you can have the most far-fetched premise and situation, but as long as people react like people,
yeah.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
we're at the like I said, when shit starts going down in The Thing, Kurt Russell goes like, what, just freaks out, grabs a shotgun, hits the fire emergency alarm, and has the other guy go get a flamethrower.
I don't know what the hell's in there, but it's weird and pissed off, whatever it is.
Bennings, go get Childs.
What is this? What's going on? Hey, Palmer, what is it? I don't know. Wait, Childs.
Mac wants the flamethrower. Mac wants the what? That's what he said. Now move. Damn it.
That's behavioral. That's one could say a behavioral realism, if you will, a realistic human reaction, which ties it together.
Exactly.
Let us take a quick break, and we'll come back to talking about Buffy.
And then we'll segue into Riverdale.
That's a really good. That's an interesting to look at Twin Peaks because I've never heard of behavioral normalcy. I guess we just keep talking. I've never heard of behavioral normalcy before, but that makes perfect sense. But the thing about Twin Peaks is people weren't behaving normally.
No. That's the thing. Well, I don't even know.
The world was weird, and they were weird.
Right.
Yes.
And
there's no questioning it.
Yeah.
Within the text, right?
They were a lot of stuff that was just happening, and because they were all Lynch characters, or they were all they're all in this Lynchian and Mark Frost world, because like he said, he was always like the undersung partner in all this. There's got to be a term for this, but I don't know how to describe it other than like this kind of like realistic, like I said, realistic behavioral normalcy. It's kind of like and Stephen King even talked about this in some of his more like lampshady bits in his 80s novels about the lie that, for horror sci-fi genre entertainment for most of the 20th century as it was being developed, you always had people freaking out and not acting human.
Yeah.
Doing this stuff, whereas at some point,
it's like someone in a horror movie that just does everything that someone in a horror movie does, and
right.
It's not what you would normally do. And so it's like it's existing within the trappings of the genre without having any kind of basis in reality. We just accept that is the way that a person acts in that situation.
Right. It's people. It's plot. Plot driven characters rather than I don't know what character driven.
Character driven. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's kind of like it's like people. It's
Thank you, Aristotle.
Yeah.
And with that.
Yeah. All right. Break time.
To be continued. Tune in next time for another exciting episode of Giving the Mic to the Wrong Person.
Editing services provided by Entertainment Unlimited. Visit us at euavp.com.